everyone. Welcome back to the second episode of The Drop. Now, this is a brand new segment of the hiring record. So, this is where we cover anonymous confessions and questions from recruiters, hiring managers, and candidates. But to be honest, look, this is for everyday people like you and myself. There is zero judgment, 100% anonymity. And honestly, we don't really care what your industry or background is. We just want to create a safe space for everyone. So, enough talking from me. You all know the deal, so we're going back into the drop. Today, I have one of my really good friends, SP, as we love to call her, as a guest on the show. Welcome, SP.
Thanks for having me.
SP, you and I were obviously doing a bit of banter before this. I wanted to ask you, it's I follow you on LinkedIn, I follow you on Instagram, some really cool stuff coming out from your business. But before we talk a little about that, I'd love to know what's been on top of your mind, personally, professionally, what's going on in your world?
Yeah, I think there's probably a common factor that pops up regularly with a lot of conversations I'm having, particularly with candidates, and that is that 2025 was a shit show of a year. Am I allowed to say that? But yeah.
100%.
Great. Yeah, it was like just very challenging. And this is people of all levels. And I did see things start to pick up a little bit around December. But everyone has also then went on holidays and have only just started coming back. So there's really been that lull in January that has had so many people looking for work, feeling really anxious about when does this end? When do I get off the roller coaster? I just want some stability. So yeah, I think that's been a really, I guess, a common factor that's coming up with majority of the conversations lately. And, and I feel it too, a new person in business, it's a scary time, to be
100%.
putting yourself out there and trying to pay the bills, really.
Do you kind of feel like with how the market is, does it kind of give you a sense of how it was back when we were in COVID times? And it feels so weird even saying COVID. It feels like it was 100 years ago.
I know, it's weird, isn't it? I was really lucky during that time. I worked for RMIT Online, and it was actually a perfect storm for us because, in a downturn and when people lose their jobs, they study. And RMIT Online was 100% online, and it was affordable, bite-size chunk kind of education that addressed major skills gaps out there in the market. So for us, it was at the time was brilliant. So we were actually really busy during that time. But at the same time, every role we advertised, we had a significant amount of people applying and brilliant people. And I saw even just within our own talent community, some of the talent acquisition leaders or people who were made redundant during that time. That was really confronting. And I think then probably the difference was we're in a pandemic. So we really didn't know when things were going to end. And God, I recall going for my, 2-hour walk that I was allowed to have each day and checking the numbers, like refreshing my screen on my phone, like every 10 minutes, wanting to know the numbers being released. Are we free yet? Like there was so much uncertainty. I feel it's different now, but maybe it's the flow on effect of just a pretty terrible economy. And we were bantering before interest rates increasing soon. Like, yeah, let's just kick us while we're down. It's tough. It's really tough. And I don't know when things are going to ease off, but I think if there was ever a time to have a side hustle and start trying to create a different stream of income, now's the time to start looking at that.
Yeah. When you were saying pandemic, all I could think was of Daniel Andrews coming on at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in his North Face jacket.
Yes.
That's all I could think of.
Oh, I know. And where's he now, I wonder,
Who knows? Who knows? And to be honest, I don't know if I care. Not anymore.
No.
I mean, there's so much happening in the world, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know
Yeah.
what, SP? We're going to get into the drop. And as we were talking about it earlier, right, this is 100% anonymous. And I've actually been having a lot of fun reading the submissions because I curate everything before it actually goes out to public. And I would encourage whoever's listening to this to go and have a read because it's funny and I'm still waiting for, someone to write something about an affair. It hasn't happened. I'm sure it has. Some people have actually come to me and said, I know of certain stories that have happened. And I'm like, please don't tell me. Just go and put it up there because I don't need to know. But what we're going to do on this SP is I am going to read out a confession or a thought or a story that someone has anonymously shared. And then we'll go into 2 questions, and I'd love to get to know your thoughts, your advice, your suggestion. The idea is that hopefully these people, whoever's put it on there, they come back, they have a read, they have a listen to this. So we're going to get into it, SP. And the first one is from a candidate, right?
Okay.
And so someone said that I applied for a role with a sustainable company and had to pretend I gave a damn about plastic cups and the environment. Reality is I don't, and people will say and do anything to make ends meet. So,
Ooh. Yeah, okay.
so this is a confession. This is someone being pretty honest, and you know what? I kind of get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not an environmental person. I mean, to be honest, every time I throw something on the floor, my missus is like, "You're littering. And I'm like, I don't care. Okay, I shouldn't really say this. I should. Okay. I shouldn't say this live, but okay, the reality is that, all right, I am concerned about other things that matter to me. But having said that, to this person, all right, you know what, to each their own. That's what I say. You don't give a damn about plastics. I want to ask you this question. Did you get the job though? I don't know. What do you think, SP?
Well, listen, that's an interesting one. And I've worked in organizations where that's a really important factor to, and I probably more so in that small to medium space. Like, I understand that founders, like if we think about scale up and startup, you want people that are contributing to your business to actually be quite invested and passionate about what you're doing. But I also get it that it's a really tough job market, and sometimes you just need a goddamn job because we've got bills to pay. And that's what I'm passionate about right now, So I think
Hallelujah.
it's a bit of a double-edged sword there. I think what I would lean towards is, where does your passion lie within the role itself? And I mean, listen, if we're talking sustainability and environmental factors, like, a long while ago, I was with you on that, but I worked for Hydro Tasmania, and I'll be honest with you, back then, like, I wasn't overly passionate or even knowledgeable about green energy or clean energy, but working for that organization, I learnt so much, and it actually did bring passion for that.
Yeah.
And and to this day, like, even in my home, we recycle everything we possibly can. I've always got, loads of bags in the boot of the car for when we go shopping, or if we're out and about, like, we take our rubbish with us. We're coastal, so we want to protect our coast as well. But also, I have a 2.5-year-old son, so we always talk about litter bugs and don't be a litter bug, let's pick it up. And not just ours. If we see something on the ground within reason, we'll pick it up and pop it in the bin, or take it home to dispose of it. But it's an interesting one, and I think if it's a job that, depending on your reason for going for it, if you're just needing a damn job, totally get it, and no disrespect, like, that's important, you got to pay your bills, but who knows, it might actually lead to something that you could be quite passionate about. You might learn something completely new that may excite you and light a bit of a fire in your belly. So
100%. I think, first of all, 2 points to what you just said. What I earlier said, I definitely won't be getting a job at a startup, especially if they are into the environment and sustainability. I'm definitely not getting a job just because of what I said. But you know what? I come from a place I come from a third world country. I come from Pakistan, right? Recycling was never big while I was growing up. So when I actually first came to Australia, to have 2 different colored bins was something so totally different to me, because we put everything in one bin.
yeah.
So everything went in. So when I came here, this was such a big learning curve for me that now it's part and parcel of who I am as well. Like, I can't live without having 2 different kinds of colored bins. It
Oh
makes
my God, yeah.
all of the difference. Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
saw all the containers and jars and things that I save, because obviously we've got a big veggie patch here, and I have
Yeah.
this desire to grow our own foods and to pickle things and whatever, but I'm renovating as well. So plastic containers for when you're renovating, whether it's for glue for wallpaper or paint, like, you don't want to carry a big bloody bucket around if you're just painting some skirting board. Like, we reuse as much as we possibly can. And my garage, oh my gosh, it's I think that's where half the recycling's gone. And all the cardboard, because it goes into the garden, and it's apparently really good for suffocating weeds, and I'm surrounded by weeds. So yeah, I know. I guess it's a different mentality growing up, but I guess for me as well, I've probably learned a lot more about sustainability and in the home and how it can benefit you in the home, which reduce costs as well. So I don't know. It depends on your lifestyle as well. You know, you just
100%.
Pakistan, it wasn't a thing, and I grew up with it, so I probably don't know any different.
Yeah, 100%. And I was just drinking Sorely. So if anyone wants a recommendation into drinking something healthy, go and try out Remedy Sorely. Yuzu
And
lemon
I'm
is my favorite,
good
by the way.
old Bellarine Peninsula tap water. I'm going to say is today's podcast sponsored by Remedy. Shout out to Remedy. Get in touch.
Well, I was hoping it was going to be dead gin because I literally was thinking I was going to pour myself a glass of gin and
Oh,
and do the podcast. But then I was like, oh gosh.
I don't have any bottles at the moment.
Well, we've got two more questions before we end the segment. So the first question is, this is actually from a recruiter. So the big red flag for me in an interview is when a candidate doesn't research the role or the company. Do your homework, read about the organization. Also, it's always good to address the recruiter by their name. It means you paid attention. Even if you get it wrong, try. Recruiters know you're nervous. We have all been there. What does it signal to you when a candidate turns up to an interview without understanding the role or the company?
Yeah, that frustrates me as well. Listen, I can understand if someone doesn't completely understand the role, because sometimes a PD only gives you a certain lens and there's only a certain amount of research you can do. Like, it depends on how informative the organization's website is or their LinkedIn presence. So sometimes, you know, you can only prepare so much. But I think also it comes down to the recruiter, that you should also make sure that you're doing your due diligence and providing them with enough material that you want them to actually learn about that organization. It's a data exchange, right? You can lead a horse to water, right? But if they're not going to read through that information and take on board, you know, what you've sent through to them, provided they've had enough time to actually do that, you know, I think we've got to be fair in these circumstances. But, you know, preparation is really important. I can't remember what the saying is, but if you don't prepare, it's like piss poor effort or something like that. I forget what it is. Someone can put in the comments what it is. I clearly need more coffee today. But, you know, I think it's important. Like, if you've got a job interview with a company, like, you want to know where you're interviewing and what it's about. Like, what if it's your dream job? You don't want to screw that up. And I think it's nice just to show you've done your research and that, yep, you know, I know what you're about. You can kind of share maybe something that's happened in the media or a recent project that they've launched. You know, LinkedIn should give you enough information. But yeah, I think it's pretty slack if you don't. I mean, it also depends on what stage of your career you're at. Like, if you're kind of a bit of a young gun and it's a contact center role and they're hiring 50 people at once, like, cool, hey, it's energy, awesome. You know, but I think a little bit of preparation does go a long way. And even if it's that you jump on their website 5 minutes before your interview and just absorb as much as you can, like, come on, it's 5 minutes.
I'm not going to name any specific place, country, or anything of that sort. But there are noticeably more candidates from there that don't do enough homework. Every time I get onto a call with them, I'm like, so what do you know about XYZ company? And they're like, oh, I don't know anything. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, but you've applied with us. This call has been booked a week ago. So in my head, I'm thinking, so what have you not researched about us? Why have you not researched about us? Like, 5 minutes, like, you're right. There was one candidate who said to me, you know, I didn't know about you guys, but 5 minutes before this call, and I appreciated that honesty, because I'm like, okay, you still made the effort. And it's all you have to do is make the effort. And if you don't know anything, ask your recruiter. And we're in 2026 now with all these AI tools at our disposal.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to use Google, you've got everything at your disposal to have you ready with your research.
Yeah. And if you don't, and you pointed out before, like, if you don't have anything, like, reach out to the recruiter and say, hey, you know, just so I can prepare myself, would you mind just sending me a bit more information about the role and the company, just so I can, you know, do my own research?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Last question. And I actually really, really like this question. What happens if you have an internal candidate and an external being interviewed at the same time or in the same process? Do companies typically end up hiring the internal? Ooh, juicy.
Ooh, juicy, and I like it. I like it. Listen, I'm going to be really honest. I am a big fan of internal mobility, and I actually hate it. And I felt very conflicted when we had to do it when you go out to market and do both. Um, I don't know. I think there's something that is really beautiful about creating internal stories about growth opportunities or transitions and whatever, and that you should encourage your people to take those opportunities and to have that progression. But also, if they're not successful, to coach them through that, maybe put it in their professional development plan, or, assign a mentor internally. Also to find out, why are you going for that role? I know previously RMIT Online, we had people go for roles in completely different business units, and it was just like, cool. So why? What's inspiring you to do that? And I recall one time the gap was just far too big. Like, I think they were looking to go into product from memory, and they hadn't done any of that before. But we were able to kind of get them almost like a secondment opportunity at a bit more of a junior level, and also get them to do the product course. And in the end, like, they did a great job. They did the course, so they got some education out of it. But once they actually got a taste for the role from a secondment point of view, they were like, yeah, it wasn't actually what I thought it was going to be, but it was a really great experience. But that then enabled them to evolve in their own role, because they got a completely different lens and a better understanding of how it all kind of plugs in together into the ecosystem of the organization. So, yeah, I hate it when companies don't look internally, and it's so rude to just assume you don't have the talent there, or that nobody's interested. Like, I think it's really lovely, at least for 3 business days, or launch it on a Friday and public, if you do Slack, like, everyone in the channel gets a notification. Hey, we're hiring for this. This is a PD. This is a hiring manager. If this is something of interest, like, reach out now. Like, we will be going live to the rest of the world like mid next week, but taking internal applications and conversations now. And don't make it too complex. Like, I think start with just a really warm conversation. And I would always direct them straight to the hiring manager. Like, yes, I'm the recruiter, but like, it's internal. He's the PD. Here's the job ad. This is what it's about. Have the chat with the hiring manager. Like, is it someone you even want to work with? And ask some of the questions that, you might get the opportunity to ask in an interview, but I think it might help clarify whether or not you actually do want to apply, and why it could be an interesting opportunity. Get it done early and have those chats. And it also is a great way to kind of build that rapport, do that internal networking. But for companies that go straight out to market, like, I get it. Sometimes the gap is far too big and it's very obvious, and you might be a really lean organization. You just don't have the resources in place to truly support someone to be successful. I get it. That's a painful scenario too. But I think if organizations are going to do that, you kind of need to look at how are you going to make the effort to bridge that gap at some point. So
100%.
But you got to look at the situation.
Yeah, I think, like, in one of my previous companies, I feel like at enterprise level, they did it well, because having that process in place is going to be beneficial for both sides. Why? Because we would run, so let's say if there was a rec before we would actually go out, we would first only internally ever advertise that for about a week. At the same time, we wouldn't go out to market, but we'd go out to market via sourcing. So we source, because sourcing itself doesn't happen over 24 hours. That in itself takes about a good solid week or more. And if we would not find anyone in that week internally, that's when the whole sort of shebang would start. Where I've seen it become very unpleasant for recruitment is after we've gone out, we found people, then all of a sudden someone internally stabbed the hiring manager saying, oh, I've seen this rec. I want to put my expression of interest. And then it becomes that, okay, now what do we do here? The hiring manager said, we've got someone internal. I've heard really good things about them from their manager. I want to push them into the process. And then you're already towards the pointy end of the process with external candidates. And that's where it can get a little messy at the same time.
It can. And I've been in that situation, but I think there's also ways that if it's an internal person, like, why can't we create a unique process where we fast track some of that? We already know they're potentially a great cultural fit or value add, culture add to the organization. They've already got really good insights, so they should have had that time to really understand the organization. And that kind of cuts through parts of that exploration part of the process, right? But yeah, I think if organizations, if you are a larger organization, a bit more complex, like create a bit more of a unique approach to internal mobility and for that, so that you can kind of, fast track it. Maybe keep it simple. And I think also when there is a gap, like don't just cancel it out. Like, what are the steps? Could you put that person on a really steep learning curve? Like, are they resilient and curious enough that they will be hungry to really learn and invest the time in that? Is there a short course you can put them on, whilst they're navigating that? Pair them up with a mentor internally just to support that transition and support their growth. Because one thing I've always said, you can teach skills most of the time. You can teach skills. But you can't teach an attitude. That's a much harder thing to teach, and it takes a lot more time, and it's either in you or it's not. And particularly, that growth mindset piece, that curiosity, like if someone's just very inflexible and rigid, it's going to take a really long time to get that out of them. But yeah, I think probably the other thing to explore internally is the why. Why this role? Why now? What's in it for you? Because sometimes, and I have noticed it throughout my career, sometimes people they're bored, they want something else, and they like the company, they want to stay in the company, they don't want to look elsewhere, they're not really sure what they want to do next, but, they want to stay within the business. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think every decision on why you want to change roles within your organization has to be, I want growth and promotion and this and that. Like sometimes it just can simply come down to, I just want a new challenge. I want to try something
100%.
else. Or my manager.
A lateral move is still a move. A lateral move is a good move. It doesn't have to be a step up. A step up is not,
new knowledge, it's nourishing your brain. And the other thing we've got to realize is sometimes people have a new manager or whatever, they don't like their manager or team leader or their colleagues suck. I get it. We've all had those moments we've worked with someone who's gone, oh, you're a drainer, I'd rather work with that team.
High for potential, right? I mean, in certain cases, yes, you can. In certain cases, you can't. And like recently we had one where, we decided to hire someone on potential. And I was like, this was a big win for us, because that is a testament to knowing that we are broadening our own horizons with our own thinking and challenging the status quo within the business to say, no, just because we want A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, no, I'm giving you 1, 2, 3, 4 instead. So yeah, but you just got to support people on that journey so you do set them up for success. And cool, steep learning curves. Like, if you hire someone externally, getting them up to speed in a new role anyway is probably going to take just the same amount of time. 100%. Love the advice, SP. Thank you so much. Like I said, this is short, sharp. Hope you enjoyed the questions. I'd highly encourage you, SP, as well. Go on to the website, have a read of some of the confessions. They're actually pretty funny. The recent one actually made me laugh. I was reading it last night and I curated that as well. So definitely go on there. But SP, thank you so much for joining us, and would love to have you back again. So thank you, everyone. And I will be back with the third episode next week.
See you.
Yeah. Bye.